Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new to my world, my name is Melissa Sutherland. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm an activewear business owner. I love comfy clothes, and I am a women's success coach. And I wanted to come here today and talk to you a little bit about burnout because I feel like as high achievers, we tend to have really high expectations for ourselves. Asking for help is freaking hard. Let's be really honest. It's hard to ask for help. And more often than not, we can feel like we're struggling and that we're burnt out or that we're headed for burnout and feel like we're alone. But the truth is, over half of working moms feel burnout at some point. And I honestly think that since the pandemic, that number is probably a lot higher because our mental health as a demographic has just continued to struggle and decline. And more women are struggling with anxiety and stress and these feelings of burnout. Now, I'm not a therapist. Not at all. But as a busy working mom, I know that what we're experiencing is real and can even happen when, from the outside looking in, it looks like everything's pretty Instagram perfect, right? And I want to reiterate that what we're going to talk about today doesn't replace a conversation with a therapist or a doctor or a health professional. If you feel like it's too much, if you're feeling like you need help, um, getting help is okay. And there's no shame in it. And I know that for some of us, there's a stigma around admitting that we need mental health help. But the truth is, it's one of the best things you can ever do for yourself if you really truly need it. And, you can at least have a conversation with a professional and see if how you're feeling can be overcome naturally, or if you need a little bit of support in other ways. There's no shame in that. So what is burnout? Let's like really dive in and talk about what is burnout, because I think not talking about it, we don't realize just how common it is and how so much of what we might be feeling might actually be that we are just burned out and we do need to make some changes in our life, and that things aren't as hard as they seem and feel, or that we can make them better, right? So the the definition of burnout according to Psychology Today is that it is a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion, um, brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. In other words, we feel pretty ready to just tap out. We are done. We are toast. We are completely exhausted. And I don't mean like you just had a bad day and tomorrow everything's going to be better. I mean, we wake up feeling exhausted. And as we go through our day, we are just wiped out and we feel like we just can't take on another thing. And our productivity is suffering and our attitude is not so great, right? Like, it can be problems at work. It can also be in other areas of our life, right? Like, it can come from being a parent, or it can come from being a caretaker, or it can come from problems in our relationships, right? Our romantic relationships or close interpersonal relationships. So if you relate to this, if you feel this way, if you feel like you're struggling with this, or maybe you know somebody who's struggling with this, I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments. But also, send this to somebody that this might help, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to be completely burned out to know that you're headed this way, right? So if we can help somebody who's headed in this direction, maybe, pull it back, that's a good thing, right? So, what are the other symptoms of burnout besides feeling exhausted, right? Besides less productivity, what are some other symptoms? Did you know that insomnia can actually be a sign of burnout? Being really irritable or snapping to anger or just being excessively sad, like, we think of that as depression, but it can also just be a symptom, or I wouldn't say just, but it can be a symptom of burnout. If you find yourself leaning on alcohol or other substances to get through your days, again, while that can look like depression, it can also be a sign of burnout. And burnout can also cause like serious health problems like heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes. It can just make us be one of those people that catches everything that comes down the pipe, and we, get the flu and then strep and then COVID or RSV, or you know what I mean? Like we're catching everything. And that weakened immune system can actually be caused by long periods of elevated stress, AKA burnout. So, it affects every part of our body, of who we are, and it can affect every part of our lives. So it's a big deal when we feel this way, and it can be incredibly hurtful in our lives and in our relationships. So, as a mom, we can be feeling this incredibly overwhelming exhaustion, irritability, chronic stress, and find ourselves actually distancing ourselves from our kids or our partner because we just don't have the energy to mom, or we just don't have the energy to wife. Even if our burnout is a result of work, those things can still be a factor, right? And it can still affect our relationships at home. So, how do we prevent this from happening? How do we go from that feeling of wanting to tap out to tapping in and feeling fully present and really good about where we're at in our lives? Well, one thing is to look at where you might be the source of your own stress. And now I'm not saying like blame the victim, right? But we are really hard on ourselves and we often look for perfection. And we have a lot of examples of like the Instagram perfect life to follow, right? Between, and now with reels, it's like extra, right? So there's all these examples of these so-called perfect lives that set impossibly high standards for us. And we begin to be incredibly hard on ourselves. So we need to start learning to recognize when we are being that way, when we're striving for that ultra perfection that doesn't really exist, or when we're setting really unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and learn to release that. Most of the time, done is better than perfect anyway. And at the end of the day, your kids aren't going to remember if they had these amazing picture perfect cupcakes or if their cupcakes came from the grocery store bakery. All they're gonna know is that you showed up for them with the cupcakes when it mattered, right? So it's okay to release those ridiculous high standards that we put on ourselves and just be the best we can be without striving for perfection. We also need to start to learn to kind of recognize our limitations. This is really important for us as women because we want to do it all. We want to be everything to everyone in our family. We want to be the caretaker. We want to be the lover. We want to be the amazing mom and the perfect employee. We want to nail it in our home business and show up and be everywhere all the time. And then we end up taking on too much. I do think it's really important to have a really clear idea of what you want your life to look like, how you want to show up for your family, how you want to show up in your job, in your business, in, the things that you do. I think it's important to have a really clear picture of what you want your life to look like. And then ask the question, is this in alignment with what I want for my career or for my family or for my business? And if the answer is no, then it's okay to say no to whatever that thing might be. Learning to recognize what's not in alignment for you, even if it's a good thing, even if it's a huge honor, learning to recognize that while this thing is really great and it's a great opportunity, it's not in alignment with what I want right now. It's okay to say no. And it's okay to say, thank you for thinking of me, but that doesn't fit in my vision for my life right now. And if that sounds too like woo woo, it's okay to just say, my calendar is full. I can't take anything else on right now. And if they genuinely care about you as a person, they're going to respect you for saying that. So, definitely learning to say no and recognizing what's not in alignment is going to be huge for you. Another thing I want you to do is kind of reevaluate how you label things. A label is, how we perceive things and what we call them. Is something a problem, or is it a challenge, or is it an opportunity? Like, it could be the exact same situation, but if you're thinking of it as a problem versus thinking of it as a challenge or an opportunity, it's going to feel a lot different because a problem is a negative thing, right? But a challenge is something to overcome, and an opportunity is a place to grow and become something better, right? So, how we label things can really have a huge impact on how stressful they feel to us. So, if we view a particular situation in a negative way or as a potential threat to something we value versus an opportunity, or we can look at it as something that can be solved, right? A challenge to be solved. How we see the situation, how we perceive it, is going to impact your stress levels overall. So just kind of think about that. Like, am I thinking about this in the right way? Is there an opportunity for growth here? Can I start looking at things a little bit differently? And when you reframe your thinking, you also reframe your stress levels. Definitely practice self care. Don't wait until you're already burned out to take some time for yourself. Like, so often I hear women saying, "Oh my God, I'm so burned out. I need a spa day." Take the spa day before you get burned out. Feed your soul, feed your mind, take care of your body, and fill your cup before you get to that point of burnout. And I know that that can be really hard because we're so busy and go, 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 day in and day out. But the reality is that by taking the time to take care of yourself before you get into that sense of burnout can really help keep your energy up and your mindset strong and keep you from feeling that full on tap out exhaustion of burnout. And that's what we don't want, right? Another thing is a lot of women say, I just want balance. I just want work-life balance. And the reality is for most of us, we're never going to have like perfect balance. What we're going to have is a situation or a circumstance that needs more of our attention at any given time. So sometimes it might be your kids need more of your attention, or it might be your partner or your marriage, or it might be that you have a big project at work, or you might be pushing for a new rank in your home business. And there's always going to be one area where you feel like you really need to focus your attention, and that's okay. Rather than beating yourself up for not having perfect balance all the time, learn to be present where you're planted, when you're planted there and when you're working there, so that you can feel like you're giving your best where you are in that given moment. And if you only have a half hour a day with your kids because they have sports and clubs and obligations, make the most of that half hour. Put your phone away, be present. And the same thing is true for your home business. Like, really focus in on the things that are really important so that when you get done with your power hour or you get done with your scheduled time to work your business, you feel like you were really productive and you can feel good about shutting your computer or turning off your phone and going and being with your family. Giving your best where you're at in the moment and being really present where you're at in the moment is going to feel so good. And because you feel good, you're not going to be so inclined to feel that super burned out feeling. So, what if you're feeling fully burned out right now? First of all, you're probably feeling some guilt about wanting to tap out. I know when my son was born, like that first year with a new baby is hard. And My kids didn't believe in sleep. So there were times when I just wanted to run away from home. Like, I'll be honest, like I literally wondered what it would be like to get in my car and just drive and not come back. I was burned out. I was tapped out. I was exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally. I was touched out because I was breastfeeding and, I was done. And I felt bad about it. I felt enormous mom guilt because I wanted to run away from home. We have to forgive ourselves. No matter what led to how you're feeling, we can change it and we can grow from it. But the first thing we need to do is forgive and love ourselves and know that we are not alone. We're not alone. I promise you, there's somebody else who has felt the way that you feel right now. And it's okay. And whatever led up to you feeling this way, we can change it, right? We can make the situation better. Maybe not immediately, but we can start making changes that can improve the situation that we're experiencing, right? So, one of my roles as a coach with the women that I work with is to really help moms get a good grasp on your schedules and help you begin to really prioritize the things that are most important to you. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do now is if you're feeling this burnout feeling, the first thing you want to do is get really clear on your priorities and cancel everything that isn't a good fit. Clear out as much as you can from your obligations, from your to-dos, take a leave of absence from the things that you've signed up for, and maybe you're on the PTO, and maybe you're in a couple of clubs, and maybe you have a lot of obligations. It's okay to take a breather. It's okay to ask for more time or for time away. And if the group or organization isn't willing to give it to you, well, then I would consider my involvement with that group or organization because it's really important that you are able to take care of you first. You can always pick things up back up later. If you miss it or if you feel like you want to get back to it, you can always come back. But for right now, try to streamline your schedule as much as possible. Shed any extra dead weight that you can. And if there are things that have to get done, but they cause you stress or guilt, let's take a good look at why you feel that way. Do these things benefit you, but they take time away from something else? Do you feel like they're important, um, or that nobody else can do them as well as you can? Chances are that's not true unless it's something really specific. But a lot of the women I work with feel this way, and especially when they have a home business, because they're taking time away from their family to work their home business. I mean, I can relate to that. And I've had a home business for 15 years. So obviously, if developing the home business is a long-term goal, getting rid of that is not the solution, right? So that doesn't make sense. But we can find other things that can be delegated or hired out that make more sense and free up time for your business and your family or the other things that you do really deeply desire to do. So there's less guilt, there's more time freedom, and everything gets done. So some examples of this might be house cleaning, it might be a lawn or a pool service, it might be trading off with another mom on carpool duty so that you have a few extra minutes in the morning a couple days a week. Look at what are your mundane tasks that can be delegated or hired out. What can you release? And maybe you can't afford to release all the things right now, but find out what they cost and make it a goal to work towards that, right? The more you can release and delegate and focus on the things that are really super important to you, the better you're going to feel and the more time freedom you're going to experience and the less burnout you're going to feel, as long as you don't pack that time back full of other mundane stuff. right? So I hope that this was helpful to you. There's more I want to talk about on this subject, but I do want to kind of try to keep these a little bit short and sweet. So if this was helpful, please let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation. If you feel burned out or if you relate to this because you felt this way in the past, this is a real problem for working moms, and it's a problem that doesn't discriminate. We feel it at all levels of the workforce. We feel it in all colors. We feel it in all family dynamics. There's one thing that I know for sure is that burnout doesn't discriminate. So love yourself, seek help if you need it. Please seek help if you need it, and know that it is possible to overcome this feeling of burnout. So, again, let me know in the comments if this was helpful, and I will be back soon with more on this topic.